Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are in day 21 of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and the fighting continues at a very, very high rate with significant casualties on both sides continuing to be reported. Now, what I wanted to do is jump right into this in the area to the west of Lviv, and specifically the attack on the Yavoriv military base that occurred approximately 30 miles west-northwest of Lviv. And what we're understanding now that there may have been as many as 1,500 foreign volunteers that were waiting for deployment orders to be deployed in other areas of Ukraine. And that is when this base was attacked. And I know initially there are reports that there were 30 KIA, up to 100 wounded. But there are additional reports that indicates that death toll may be much, much higher, and quite possibly over 100 KIA. And in fact, what we're also hearing is quite possibly that many of those individuals that were KIA and wounded were also both of British nationality and even some Americans that were located in that training base, preparing to be deployed to other parts of Ukraine. There have been quite a few posts on various social media sites that indicate that some of those personnel were present during said attack, and are reporting that in fact the fatality rate was much higher than is being reported, and in fact that some Western and foreign volunteer KIAs or deaths are in fact being reported as quite possibly Ukrainian military. And that information is being very, very tightly kept right now in terms of releasing accurate information on what just occurred in that military base northwest of Lviv. We do know that NATO countries have utilized that base in the training of Ukrainian forces in that partnership program that existed prior to hostilities kicking off. But more importantly is just some of these reports that you can clearly see some of these foreign fighters from the West who believed that they were partaking in a just fight have come to the realization that modern war is not pretty. And unfortunately for a lot of these folks, if they had combat experience, much of that combat experience was in Afghanistan and Iraq. You do not have contested airspace in Iraq and Afghanistan. The U.S. forces, the British forces that were deployed to Iraq were not facing cruise missile strikes from the Russian Federation. That did not occur. Now, granted, they were facing some even at times more insidious efforts by ISIS and by the Ba'athist elements in Iraq, and a whole host of jihadi elements as well, in the form of improvised explosive devices and vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. But again, that aspect of going to a base that you feel is fairly secure, only to have it attacked by about 30 cruise missiles, is something new for a lot of Western military personnel. Again, we have just not, meaning we, the United States, Britain, have just not, as of yet, experienced what contested airspace, where you have an adversary who can actively fire fairly accurate both ballistic and cruise missiles at you. And for a lot of those guys based at that base northwest of Lviv are now coming to the fruition that this is not going to be easy, and they in fact could possibly be killed before they even get to the front line, based on an accurate cruise missile strike. And again, from the intel that we're receiving at MFAN indicates a lot of these guys are looking to get the hell out of Ukraine now. And again, it just goes to show you this is a different conflict than a lot of Western nations have been involved with in the past. Again, when you have air supremacy and you have a helicopter gunship or a multi-role fighter bomber or a Reaper or a Predator always over to support you or on call, and that goes away, and now you're being attacked from the air. That can be a different proposition for many individuals, and unfortunately for those folks, that is what they are seeing at this time. They are entering a country that is in all-out war with Russia, and they're going to experience the full effect of that in this conflict. So ongoing fighting taking place continues. We continue to see the Russian military conduct battalion and company-sized actions both to the west and northeast of Kiev. We have seen renewed ambushes by the Ukrainian military, specifically near Brovary. The Ukrainians continue to utilize the NLAWs, the Javelins, and even their own systems to great effect against these Russian columns that continue to try to make advances towards the Ukrainian capital and in these built-up settlements that surround Kiev. And again, the videos are very predominant on various social media sites where you can physically see what exactly is happening. In one of the newest videos that have surfaced, you can clearly see an NLAW being used against a T-72 variant tank. You can clearly see it killed the tank. It detonated over the turret, penetrating the turret, and then a few seconds later you can see the catastrophic cook-off of the ammunition, and you do not see any crew members depart that armored vehicle. Then you start to see BMPs and armored fighting vehicles unleash its infantry, and then those infantry come under attack by automatic weapons fire as well. And then you can clearly see the Russians attempt to return fire in the direction of the ambush. But again, it's really just a clusterfuck for those Russian units that are fighting in these areas, and again against some of these more advanced anti-tank weapon systems that have been given to Ukraine by the West, specifically the Javelin and the NLAW. We also know that the Panzerfaust III has been delivered. That system is more or less an over-engineered RPG-7, not on the same level in terms of accuracy in that top attack ability that you would see from the likes of the NLAW or the guided ability that you would see from the Javelin. But nonetheless, it is a decent system, and a Panzerfaust III on a side aspect hit will absolutely kill a T-72 main battle tank or other armored infantry fighting vehicles. But again, the fighting continues. We continue to see the Russians employ massive amounts of artillery. It would appear to avoid continued casualties by these anti-tank guided weapons teams that the Russians are going up against. They have decided to, again, continue with its reconnaissance in force and then bring in these artillery units to just bombard areas where the Russians believe, that Ukrainian opposing forces are stationed or could be operating in. And then again, that's going to lead inherently to the loss of civilian life. As you can clearly see, some from the video evidence indicates that indeed apartment buildings are being hit by heavy artillery from this Russian artillery fire. Now, with that being said, there's other things also that are not being reported, such as in the eastern separatist area. We know now that the Ukrainians have indeed launched some of their own ballistic missiles at Donetsk, and in fact, a Tocha impacted downtown and quite possibly killed and or injured a number of civilians. So again, the Ukrainians as well are striking back and using really kind of the same assets a lot of times that the Russians are employing against targets that happen to have civilian areas. And in that case, we did see this ballistic missile come down and hit Donetsk and quite possibly cause a significant amount of fatalities inside of the city. But again, right now, the Russians continue to have success, predominantly in the south. Again, we believe the Southern District Army groups and those brigades and divisions that were deployed in the south near the Caucasus have been training together, working together, and appear to be conducting themselves in a more proficient manner when it comes to operating in southern Ukraine. And we are seeing, obviously, from the map you can clearly see here, that the Russians continue to advance and make headway in the south, whereas in the north it's a bit more of a struggle. Now, with that being said, we continue to hear about heavy fighting taking place in Mariupol. In fact, we have learned that the Russians attempted a fairly large-scale attack on Mariupol with ground forces, specifically the 150th Mechanized Division, which is normally based very close to Mariupol. It's just on the other side of the Russian border where it's normally stationed. And apparently, it is being reported that the general in charge of that division was in fact killed in the course of a battle taking place in Mariupol. And we've seen a number now of Russian generals leading from the front being KIA'd in battle. And again, that we will probably see that continue as we're seeing a lot of these Russian generals attempt to lead from the front and spur their forces on to engage the Ukrainians. And unfortunately for the Russians, that recent battle that took place in the urban areas of Mariupol, in this area here, where my cursor is circling, saw the Russians quite possibly take some significant casualties. And again, it's the commanding officer of that division may in fact have been KIA'd in action. KIA'd. And again, the fighting continues. We've really kind of seen now that the Russians are apparently no longer pushing to actively take control of Kharkiv. They are more or less attempting a wide circle, an encirclement, a very wide encirclement of Kharkiv, and it would appear also quite possibly they are moving forces from the areas near Kharkiv to assist other efforts, such as quite possibly the drive on Kiev and other operations further to the south. Again, we're now over 20 days into this conflict, and again, it really shows no sign of ending. And as we had talked about before this conflict had even started, we had anticipated here at MFAN that it would be a drawn and very drawn out and long conflict given the capabilities that both nation states have. Again, I think the Ukrainians were vastly underestimated going into this conflict. And I believed outside of the Russian Federation having the ability to turn some of those Ukrainian generals to support Russia, that it would in fact be much like we're seeing right now. And it would appear that the Russians have had great difficulty in compromising some of those Ukrainian top leader, brigade commanders, district commanders to come over to the Russian side, and they in fact are fighting with a high level of tenacity, unfortunately for the Russians. And again, that's kind of what we're seeing on the ground. I do not believe it is one-sided and really kind of lopsided. If you watch Western news media, you would believe that the Russian military is just, again, utterly incompetent, and they're just being beaten on the battlefield. And I don't think that's the case. I do think the Russians have suffered setbacks and have suffered defeats on the battlefield. But again, based on Russian doctrine, this deep battlefront, broad battlefront doctrine that the Russians are employing is going to slowly wear down the Ukrainians. And again, while you don't see the same sort of images in terms of the Russians employing some of the same types of technology the Ukrainians have in terms of some of these anti-tank guided weapon systems that blow up these tanks, we are seeing evidence that Russian artillery and cruise missiles are in fact having a great effect against the Ukrainians in terms of causing casualties and reducing their ability to conduct war. And again, that's kind of where we sit right now. We'll obviously continue to watch the situation and report. But again, that's where we're at, and we will, again, continue to report and bring you more content for your consumption. Have a good day, everybody.